tired. And I do not mean the kind of fatigue that follows a long day of work, or the exhaustion of physical exertion. I am speaking of a heaviness that sleep does not cure. It feels as though gravity acts upon you differently than it does on others. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, there is a sensation of descending, a subtle, sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach. You look at your phone. You see the world spinning at a frantic pace. People are achieving, arguing, celebrating, moving. But you are static. You have become a master of observation, a lurker. You scroll through feeds for hours, consuming the lives of strangers, yet you leave no trace. You rarely comment. You rarely post. You treat the digital world like a museum where you are a ghost, present but invisible. There is a specific shame attached to this, isn't there? You tell yourself that you are lazy. You look at your lack of motivation and you label it as a defect of character. You see your desire to withdraw into your room, to close the curtains, to avoid the chaotic noise of society as a sign of social failure. You feel like you are rotting. While your peers seem to be made of light and air, effortless in their social dances, you feel made of lead, heavy, grey, immense. But what if I told you that this diagnosis is wrong? What if I told you that this heaviness is not a malfunction, but a mechanism? That this rot you feel is not the end of your life, but the necessary beginning of a process so old we have forgotten its name. Modern psychology might call this depression. Society calls it unproductivity. But the alchemists of the past, they called this Nigredo, the blackening. You are not broken, my friend. You are simply in the furnace. The world, of course, has a name for your condition. They call it avoidance. They call it antisocial behavior. Modern culture is obsessed with visibility. It operates on a simple, brutal logic. If you are not seen, you do not exist. If you are not constantly broadcasting your thoughts, your meals, and your milestones, you are presumed to be malfunctioning. So, when you retreat into your room, when you choose to observe rather than participate, society diagnoses you as sick. But let us look at the evidence. Look at the digital landscape you are expected to inhabit. It is a ceaseless torrent of outrage, performative happiness, and artificial conflict. It is a machine designed to fragment your attention and monetize your anxiety. Is it truly sick to want to hide from that? Or is it rational? I believe that your heaviness, your so-called laziness, is not a defect. It is an immune response. Just as the body develops a fever to burn out a virus, your psyche has induced this state of withdrawal to protect you from a toxic environment. You are not hiding because you are weak. You are hiding because you are sensitive. You feel the artificiality of the world more acutely than others. You see the masks people wear, and you find them exhausting to look at. So you retreat. You become a lurker. You pull the blanket of silence over your head, not to escape reality, but to preserve what is left of your own reality. This is not cowardice. This is digital asceticism. You are unconsciously practicing the ancient art of withdrawal to save your soul from being diluted by the noise. You are keeping your energy contained, waiting for a signal that is actually worth responding to. But here is the danger. While this defense mechanism is valid, it has a cost. The walls you built to keep the noise out are now keeping the light out too. And inside those walls, the air is getting stale. The lead is getting heavier. And this brings us to the most difficult truth. You cannot stay in the bunker forever, because the lead must eventually become gold. To understand why you are stuck, we must leave modern psychology behind and turn to a much older map of the human soul. In the medieval tradition of alchemy, the goal was to turn base metals, specifically lead, into gold. For centuries, we thought this was just primitive chemistry. But the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung realized that the alchemists weren't just talking about metals. They were talking about us. They were documenting the process of individuation, the psychological journey of becoming who you truly are. And the first stage of this great work is what they called Nigredo, the blackening. Nigredo is described as a state of decomposition, of putrefaction. It is the moment when the old self begins to rot. It is characterized by depression, confusion, a lack of energy, and a profound sense of meaninglessness. Does this sound familiar? You see, society tells you that your lead, your heaviness, is a mistake. But alchemy tells us that the lead is the prima materia, the first matter. It is the raw material absolutely necessary for the creation of gold. You are not suffering because you are flawed. You are suffering because the persona you built to survive your childhood, the mask you wore to please your parents, your teachers, and society, has finally collapsed. There are hidden variables at play here. Perhaps it was a wounded child dynamic, where you learned that only by being quiet could you be safe. Perhaps it was the realization that the path you were promised, go to school, get a job, be happy, was a lie. Whatever the cause, your psyche has decided that the old version of you is no longer viable. It has initiated the Nigredo to burn it down. This is why positive thinking fails you. You cannot decorate a house that is burning to the ground. You are not meant to fix this sadness right now. You are meant to endure the heat. Think of the caterpillar in the cocoon. Before it becomes a butterfly, it does not simply grow wings. It completely dissolves into a chaotic genetic soup. It literally falls apart. If the caterpillar had a human consciousness, it would think it was dying. It would diagnose itself with depression. It would feel like it was rotting. But it is not dying. It is becoming. Your isolation, your silence, your hours spent staring at the ceiling, this is your cocoon. This is the alchemical fire. You are currently in the soup. It is dark, yes. It is heavy, yes. But this darkness is not an empty void. It is a womb. The reason you feel like lead is because you are heavy with potential. You are currently processing the trauma, the shame, and the expectations of the past, breaking them down so they can be reassembled into something stronger. So stop fighting the rot. Let it burn. The only way out is through. You have been silent for a long time. I know the safety of the shadows is comforting. But alchemy cannot be performed entirely in a vacuum. Sometimes simply naming the darkness is the first step toward lighting it. I am not asking you to become a public speaker. I am not asking you to change who you are. But if you recognized yourself in this description of lead and Nigredo, I invite you to break your silence just this once. Look at the comments below. Do not see them as a public forum. Treat them as a confessional. Tell me, what does your Nigredo feel like right now? What is the weight you have been carrying alone? Write it down, leave it there, and then let it go. You are not just a lurker here. You are a fellow student of the human condition. And you are welcome in this sanctuary. Then fades to silence. My name is... We will speak again soon.